Welcome to For the Tech of It. In this episode, we're going to discuss some tools and tips to help you small business owners and freelancers to find solutions that will help you to both grow your business as well as alleviate some of the headaches associated with the administrative aspects of your business as it grows. So we've got some good topics today. Today we're going to cover managing your important data, business continuity planning and service level agreements. We'll touch on some accounting software solutions out there in case you hadn't really thought that out too much yet. So, integrated office suite solutions, we'll also talk about that. And we'll cover some legal and other professional services you may want to consider. So all of that coming up right now. So let's open our conversation today with a very true statement that I believe practically all of you would agree with here. Small business owners are a jack of all trades with little to no time to be a master of any of them. And we have to juggle so many different things. You have to be, in many cases, your own IT person. You have to be, the specialist in your trade, of course. You have to be the legal authority. You have to be the accountant. You have to be the bookkeeper. You have to be pretty much everything. And it leads you to focus on a lot of things that, while important, may not be the most important things that you should be focusing on. So some of the tips and tools that we'll talk about today, which will help you to grow your business, really center on these particular bullet points that I have here. Integrated software, and we'll go into some detail about this. And by the way, I will have links to the applications, or rather the solutions we'll talk about today as part of the show notes. So we'll talk about integrated software, business continuity and disaster recovery planning, that's a big one. Implementing a written cybersecurity policy, another big one that a lot of businesses overlook. Standardization, mainly around hardware. And we won't go into marketing, but to me, marketing is a given. You have to market yourself in order for people, potential customers, to even know that you're out there. Okay, so let's talk about integrated software. So what is integrated software? As you see, I have here, really, integrated software is any software that incorporates two or more applications or two or more systems that can share data between them. And I have some examples here of some integrated software. And we'll look at a few of these today. There's OnlyOffice Workspace, Zoho One, Google Workspace is another really nice integrated software solution. Salesforce.com, Microsoft, I think they call it Microsoft 365 now, but more specifically Microsoft Office, which many of you are very familiar with. There are various accounting software solutions out there that are integrated. And of course, LibreOffice, which is one that I use here at the channel. Now, also keep in mind that integrated software does not necessarily have to be from one particular vendor. There are vendors who offer software that other third-party software vendors create additional tools and capabilities for. And we'll go into that a little bit as well. Now, as a small business owner, as you well know, there are a whole host of decisions that you need to make. Especially when you're looking for information technology related solutions. What are the best options for my money? There are just so many decisions to make. Where do I even start? Do I outsource all of my services and capabilities? Do I hire people? Do I leverage the cloud or not? Do I do everything on premise, meaning bring all my servers, all my compute, and everything is within my office environment? Do I go with a hybrid approach? And there are a lot of companies of all sizes that implement hybrid solutions. And you ask yourself, what is a hybrid solution? A hybrid solution is really the combination of some cloud-based infrastructure and some on-premise assets. Support services, that's another thing you have to start thinking about. What level of support do I need? Are there any regulatory compliance constraints that your business has to abide by? So depending on the line of work that you're in, there may be regulatory constraints that you have to conform to. So let's say the business that you're in has you working with some type of volatile chemicals or something like that, or the storage of some type of volatile chemicals. There are certainly going to be some regulatory compliance issues there that you're going to have to deal with. So there's just a whole host of things that you have to figure out, and hopefully what this episode will do is kind of help you to figure out how do you start putting things into place in a particular order to help you answer some of these questions. All right, so when it comes to trying to figure out the solutions that you need and what capabilities those solutions need to provide, right, you need an idea of what it is you're looking for and what questions to ask. So can the solution, for example, scale to meet your business, as your business needs grow, can the solution grow to meet those needs, right? You don't want to necessarily invest in a particular software solution that can't grow as your business is growing. Does a solution provide you with the features that you need? So as an example here, you may be starting out and saying, you know what, I don't need inventory management just yet, but as I've had time to really sit back and do a 1 to 3 year, maybe a 1 to 5 year outlook on the growth of my organization, I know that within the next 2 to 3 years, I will need to have some type of inventory tracking or inventory management capabilities. So as you're evaluating solutions, look for those solutions to have those capabilities. Does it support multiple platforms? And this is something else a lot of folks don't think about, right? So many of us carry some type of smartphone. Many of us carry multiple smartphones. You could have an iPhone. Some of us have Android devices. Some have both. You may have iPads or Android tablets. You could be an Apple Macintosh user or a Windows user, right? Some of us use Linux. You want to make sure that the solution that you're ending up choosing will support multiple platforms, because in addition to that, as your company is growing, you may bring in contractors or additional employees at some point. And especially with contractors, those contractors may come in with technology, a platform that's different from what you're using. Not everybody necessarily is running Windows. A lot of folks use the Mac. A lot of folks use iPads only, right? Some of us use Linux machines. So it just varies. So you definitely want to look into that as well. Now, you want to do both, not only feature comparisons, i.e., what all functionality does it have, but you definitely want to do your cost comparisons, right? What will this solution cost over the next 1 to 5 years as your business grows? A lot of these solutions offer what's called a subscription service, where you pay annually or monthly or what have you. You pay some type of subscription fee to use that technology. So keep that in mind as well. You also want to question those vendors on their security and privacy policies, right? That's very important as well. You need to understand how it is that your data, any data you're storing in their environment, is going to be protected from malware, other types of viruses, intrusion detection, cybersecurity events. There's a whole host of things there to consider. Oh, and can you customize things, like reports, for example? So if you're looking at an accounting solution, more often than not, these companies will have some pre-baked canned reports, but What I've found, as I've been evaluating a few things myself, is that some of them are pretty limited on how flexible they are in allowing you to create your own reports, right? So if that's something that you care about, you definitely want to question them on that. Again, what is their backup and restore strategy? And we'll talk about what BCP is here shortly. You need to understand how frequently is your data going to be backed up. If your data somehow needs to be recovered, what's the process and how long will it take for that solution provider to get your data recovered to a state where you can start using it again? And finally, uptime and support hours, and we'll go into this as well here in the next section. All right, so let's talk about business continuity planning, or BCP. Now, BCP is a very important step that so many small businesses overlook. They don't really think about it. And really, it starts by asking yourself, what do you do when there is some type of business disruption, for whatever reason? How quickly can your business recover from that event, whether it's a natural disaster, some type of unplanned outage that occurs? Well, the BCP is a process by which, or a plan that you implement to help you to define how you prevent those types of events from occurring as best you can, and how quickly you can recover from those events, from those outages, such as natural disaster or cyber attacks. BCPs are designed to protect not only your digital assets, but your personnel as well as other assets. BCPs make sure that your business can continue functioning essentially when disaster strikes. Now, a component of the BCP is called the Disaster Recovery Plan. And the Disaster Recovery Plan is there to make sure that your business can get back up and running as quickly as possible in case of an outage. And the BCP should be tested to ensure that it's still effective. So what a lot of companies do is they will test their business continuity plans, like let's say once a year. So I know like here in the Gulf South, a lot of companies test their BCPs just before the start of the Atlantic hurricane season, right? So that's a huge potential disruptive event here in the Gulf Coast region of the United States. So a lot of companies test their BCPs about a month or two prior to the beginning of hurricane season, the Atlantic hurricane season. Now, in the previous slide, I talked about, towards the end, disaster recovery planning. Now, let's deep dive a little bit into disaster recovery here. The disaster recovery plan is really broken into two main components. One is the RTO, which stands for Recovery Time Objective, and the other is RPO, which stands for Recovery Point Objective. And really the difference between the two is that, as you see here, the RTO, Recovery Time Objective, is the amount of time critical systems, remember you're going to do your risk assessment and rank them from criticality perspective, it's the amount of time that critical systems can be down, and you typically measure that in days, hours, minutes, or in some cases even seconds. The recovery point objective is the age of files that must be recovered from data backups in order to get back to normal operations. So what I've discovered over the years is that simple backup and restore plans are also something that a lot of small businesses overlook. I've encountered situations back in my consulting days where the small business who had been in business for like 10 years or so had not backed up any of their data in the last 5 years. And if an outage were to occur, and I would ask them the question, your last backup was 5 years ago. So if there were some type of unforeseen event, are you able to get things back up and running and start working like normal with data that's 5 years old. And it caused them to really pause and think about that, right? So RPO, Recovery Point Objective, helps to address that. All right, so getting back to BCP. Now, the BCP, of course, the DRP is a component of the BCP. The BCP, or business continuity plans, generally have 4 steps to them. One step is to conduct, as I've been saying earlier, a business impact analysis. You do a risk assessment to identify time-sensitive or critical business functions and processes, as well as the resources to support those processes and functions. So you're identifying your risk and you're ranking them. The next step is identify, document, and implement the plan to recover those critical functions and processes as quickly as possible. That's where DRP helps you. Another step is, very, very important step here, is follow the plan that you put in place. You need to follow the plan when it comes time to follow the plan. Because if you don't follow the plan, what's the whole purpose of doing the assessment and putting the plan in place to begin with? And finally, the 4th step here is you definitely want to train yourself and your team to evaluate whether or not the plan works as is or whether or not it needs adjustments. So I mentioned earlier on that a lot of companies here in the Gulf Coast region of the United States, and I'm sure on the Atlantic seaboard as well, they conduct business continuity plan testing like a month or 2 or what have you before the Atlantic hurricane season starts every year. So you definitely want to train your team and test your plans. Now you can do it more frequently if you like. More frequently is not bad. But at very least you want to do it, I would say, once a year. Another extremely important step, folks, make cybersecurity a priority. This, as well as BCP, is another area where so many small businesses either just get it wrong or in general they don't think about it. And no, cybersecurity is not only having antivirus software. Of course you need that, but that's not a good cybersecurity stance, at least not nowadays, because cyber attacks nowadays have increased not only in frequency but in sophistication. And yes, small businesses, just like large corporations, are potentially subject to cyber attacks. So here are a few steps that I've got listed. You want to implement a written cybersecurity policy even if you're the only person in the business. Let's say you're a freelancer, for example. Keep sensitive information like your computers, that includes your mobile devices, phones, tablets, what have you, as well as your network, safe from potential cyber attacks and other disasters. Back up your important data. Sounding like a broken record here, but we just talked about disaster recovery planning, RPO, Recovery Point Objective. Back up your data. Use antivirus software, of course, you want that. And you want to adopt a cybersecurity mindset early on. So as your company is growing and you're bringing in new employees or contractors or both, they will, one, you'll want to present them with your cybersecurity policy, which is a written policy, so that they understand, what your stance is with respect to cybersecurity in your organization. That's number one. Number two, as you establish that mindset early, you can train them and get them up to speed on what are some of the things to look out for. A very common cyber attack approach is what's called email phishing, where a third party will send an email out to you and or your employees or contractors, and they'll have a link in that. And the email looks very real. It's as if it came from you or from some legitimate source. But there's something about that email that just isn't quite right. And oftentimes it's really based on what the email is asking the user to do. If it's to click on something and enter a username, password, or some type of authentication code, it's suspect. So keep that in mind. You want to establish a cybersecurity mindset early on in your organization. Okay, I'm going to switch over here because I want to show you an article, and there are other articles like this online too that I happened across. And this is from a company called Informer. And Informer is a company that specializes in cybersecurity. They do what's called penetration tests for companies. The article is entitled, it's dated, February 2021, the 7 biggest cyber threats for small businesses. Let me scroll down a bit to get to the juicy part here. Last updated July 2022. All right. Here we go. Security risks that render small businesses vulnerable to cyber attacks. Let's see what they say here. Over the past few years, cyber attackers have increasingly proven themselves incredibly entrepreneurial, and that's true. And they clearly don't discriminate against business size. Small businesses, and I'll highlight this piece for you. Small businesses are often considered easy targets as they tend to have less robust cybersecurity. So attackers continue to exploit this lucrative situation. Investing in more reliable network security is a small but significant step towards mitigating dangerous cyber attacks. And it goes on, this is also another good part here. Actually, these next 2 paragraphs. I'll include the link to this article in show notes. The National Cybersecurity Alliance stated that annually, 20% of small businesses are successfully targeted, and get this, 60% of those that have been attacked have to close their doors within 6 months of the attack. So it is critical to be aware of your specific weak spots, i.e. do your risk assessment, folks, and how to successfully mitigate them quickly and effectively, your BCP plan and DRP. And they go further on and say, below we've outlined where some common weaknesses lie. And as I told you earlier on, antivirus software only offers limited protection. So antivirus software by itself is not enough. With issues like malicious code insertion by experienced hackers, there are other precautions that small businesses need to take in order to protect themselves from cyber attacks. So it is critical to be aware of your specific weak spots. Do your risk assessment. I cannot express that in any greater way. Do your risk assessment. Put together a business continuity plan, which includes your DRP. And then start focusing on, putting together a written cybersecurity policy and follow those steps. In fact, let me go back to that right quick here. These steps here. Implement written cybersecurity policy. Keep sensitive information, computers, networks, mobile devices safe from cyber attacks and disasters. Back up your data. Use antivirus software. I'm not telling you don't use that. Use it. And adopt that mindset early on. Okay, so let's talk about standardizing hardware, because there are some cybersecurity benefits to doing this as well. Standardizing the hardware in your business can save you a lot of headache and heartache over the long term. How is that? Well, for one, if you have standardized hardware, you can control what software is installed on those devices. Company-owned device, you own the administrative access to that device. Users just can't come in and install what they want on those devices. There are even solutions out there that allow you to lock down the USB ports on devices to where if they were to plug in some type of external storage, USB storage, they wouldn't be able to gain access to it. Applying firmware and software patches are consistent. Now, what's that about? So when you have let's say you decide you want to standardize on Dell hardware, all Dell laptops. So you'll set up an agreement with Dell. They'll provide you with that equipment. And when there are firmware and software patches, at least software that Dell ships with their machines, when those patches come out, those same patches will be applied across the board to all of those Dell devices. So as your company's growing and you're adding new infrastructure, especially on the client PC side of the world, what I've found is that oftentimes when companies don't really put any type of structure in place around standard hardware, they end up with a plethora of different makes and models of hardware. You got some Dell devices, you've got some HP devices, you've got some, homegrown devices, you've got perhaps a couple of Apple Macs and Lenovo's or what have you. A whole mix and mash of computing hardware. And when it comes time to apply service patches to help, again, going back to cybersecurity, these firmware updates and software patches, what's good about those is they're oftentimes security patches that are included. And if you have similar hardware in your organization, it's so much easier to apply those patches to that similar hardware than you having a more heterogeneous environment. And now you've got to get updates from Lenovo, you've got to get updates from HP, you've got to get updates from Dell, and whoever else whatever other make and model laptops you have. Better options for good support contracts. So oftentimes when you go to a particular manufacturer and you tell them, look, I'm a small business, my company is growing, I would like to, one, standardize the hardware that's used in my environment, laptops, desktops, what have you. And I also want to establish a good support agreement with that particular vendor. And oftentimes you can save money by doing that one-stop shop with them. So it's something worth investigating. You get a consistent user experience. Now, this is good and beneficial because if you look in the little picture I included here, let's say you operate a call center or some type of support desk. And you've got, in this case, this example, 4 people who are working for you, whether they're contractors or employees or a combination thereof, doesn't matter. Each morning when those people come into work, if you have consistent hardware at these tables, at these desks, it really doesn't matter where those people sit. You can interchange those folks however you like. All they do is log into that particular system and their profile comes up. All the software and systems they have access to is the only thing that they will see. So you get a consistent user experience, same device, same type of devices, makes and models of devices, and your users don't have to have, for example, assigned seats. So that's another good benefit. Another thing is some vendors, especially the larger ones, offer good trade-in programs. I checked. I know Dell has one, HP, Apple, Lenovo. They also have what are called refurbished opportunities where you can go as a business owner or even as an individual and purchase certified refurbished hardware directly from the manufacturers. And I think in all of these cases, you can get a warranty with those. So you can save a lot of money. In fact, my hardware here is refurbished hardware that I've purchased. And it works great. I don't have any issues with it. So something you should consider, looking at certified refurbished hardware. And again, don't forget about mobile phones and tablets either. So you may be in a scenario where you're using tablets or mobile phones in your environment to access your sensitive data. You may want to provide those to your workers as well. So just something else to keep in mind. Now this next section that I'm going to talk about here, legal and other professional services, I'm just going to touch on it. It's not that it's not important. It is something important, which is why I'm covering it here. But I don't really want to go into too much detail with it because depending on what line of business you're in, what type and how much of these services that you need is going to vary. So for example, if we look at the first one here, seek legal counsel to help you make sure you understand any compliance and licensing. So I think I mentioned earlier in the episode, depending on the business that you're in, you may have some regulatory constraints that you have to deal with, right? So my recommendation is to make sure you have the right legal counsel who can help you with that. So I have legal counsel here for the channel that I use. Outsourcing or hiring the talent you need to help you run and grow your business, really important, right? Whether you're going to bring in a contractor, outsource it overseas, or whatever you decide to do, hire employees or a combination thereof, certainly something that you're going to need to really think about. Consider joining industry associations. That's a big one as well. These industry associations oftentimes hold conferences in different places around the world, and you can use that as an opportunity to network, to get the word out about your company. Here's what you do. Here's how, whether or not you're open to partnering. Sorry about that, got tongue twisted on that one. Whether or not you're open to partnering with other companies. And finally, don't be afraid to approach larger companies. So I've found that larger companies typically don't have a problem doing business with small businesses as long as those small businesses can show that they can provide the level of quality and support that the large company is looking for. So don't be afraid to market yourself out to large companies. In fact, a lot of the really large companies have what are called venture capital organizations within them. And if you have a product and or service that a particular company really likes, they may be willing to invest some capital to help you to develop out your business. So that's something important to keep in mind as well. Okay, so right quick, I'm going to show you a few of the cloud-based solutions that I'm looking into as well for the channel. They are Zoho Workplace, Microsoft Dynamics 365, Oracle NetSuite, Odoo, which is an accounting package, FreshBooks, which is accounting, Collabra Office, which I'm using the open source LibreOffice solution, but Collabra offers some support services that I like, and I'm thinking about subscribing to that. OnlyOffice Workspace, and of course this is the link to the cyber threats that I spoke of earlier. But let's start with the Zoho Workplace. Now, Zoho is a really interesting one, and I want to talk to these guys a little bit more to really better understand all of what they do, but it looks like they have a pretty darn complete solution here. And as you can see in this on their website, and it's zoho.com/workplace, they've got customer relationship management, an online forms builder for data collection, a cloud phone system for sales and support teams. This is interesting. Thrive, which is a complete loyalty and affiliate management platform. Not sure what that is. I need to talk to them about that. Sales IQ, convert website visitors into customers, and this one's good for those of you who have products and services you're selling. Biggin, which is a pipeline-centric CRM for small business. There you go. Desk puts customer service at the heart of your company, and bookings. Find the perfect time with your customers. But over to the left, you can see in addition to that, they've got marketing, finance, people and culture, customer service, email and office capabilities, collaboration, even a project management solution. And there are custom solutions, BI and analytics, IT, and legal. So Zoho looks like a pretty complete solution. I'm going to be talking to them. I'm really interested in what they have to offer. Their financial solution is called Finance Plus. I've read up a little bit on it. I'm going to start kind of going into YouTube and see if I can find videos for others who've actually used these products and see what they say. So that's Zoho Workplace. Dynamics 365, this is a Microsoft solution, which is very similar to Zoho based on what I can tell. They've got pretty much everything Zoho has as well. Customer insights, customer voice, sales, finance, marketing, the whole lot. The only difference is this is for Microsoft. A competitor to that is Oracle NetSuite. NetSuite also offers a complete bevy of capabilities, all tightly integrated. E-commerce, CRM, accounting, and ERP. I mean, they've got, and Oracle and Microsoft are huge companies. So that's another one you may want to consider. Odoo, I'm not too sure about. I've heard a couple of things and read a few things about it online. It looks like it's strictly an accounting solution. So it may be worth taking a look at if you're interested in it. FreshBooks I've heard of. These guys compete against QuickBooks, which I don't even have that listed here. So QuickBooks is another one that you guys may want to take a look at. But we have FreshBooks Accounting, and I think there's one for small business. Here we go. For business size, freelancers, self-employed professionals, businesses with employees, and businesses with contractors. This is Collabra Office. This is really an office suite. It's a competitor with Google Google Docs, Microsoft Office 365. I use this here at the channel pretty much exclusively. OnlyOffice is also a competitor out there. They have by the way, Collabra Office is based on open source LibreOffice. OnlyOffice is also an open source based solution, but they too have some business capabilities here. They've got their own cloud environment. They've got CRM. They've got cloud storage, email, projects, calendaring. I just don't see the financial aspects of it, and I may want to talk to them about that. But these are the ones I wanted to show you guys. Zoho Workplace, I'll be definitely talking to these folks. Microsoft Dynamics, Oracle NetSuite, Odoo Accounting, FreshBooks Accounting, QuickBooks Accounting. There's online accounting for QuickBooks now. Collabra, if you need a complete office suite. OnlyOffice also has a complete office suite. And I'll also include the links to the cyber threats for small businesses. So let's summarize a few things that we covered here today. You definitely want to look for an integrated software solution wherever possible. Know what questions you want to ask those solution providers. Conduct your risk assessment. Forecast your company's growth, like a 3 to 5 year growth plan. What are your aspirational goals for your company? Build your business continuity plan. Create a written cybersecurity policy, and make cybersecurity a priority. Just because you're a small business doesn't mean that you're not at risk. And begin standardizing hardware. At least put together a plan for your 3 to 5 year outlook to help you to start moving towards more standardized hardware in your environment. And make sure that as you're negotiating with the service provider, that the service level agreement that you're putting into place with them or that they're putting into place with you aligns with your disaster recovery plan, right? Remember, we talked about the DRP. So we need to make sure that if there's an outage, they've got up-to-date backups and they can get your most critical systems back online in the time that you need them back online. And finally, obtain legal and other professional services. So that's it for this episode. Before I go, I do want to thank those of you who have subscribed to the channel. And if you haven't subscribed and it's your first time here, definitely hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. What I intend to do is work on another episode here that's going to take a deeper dive into cybersecurity. Cyber terrorism is rampant nowadays. And as we read on one of the articles online, there's so many other articles like it. Small businesses are not immune to cyber attacks. So I think I'm going to do that and bring that up in a new episode here. So until next time, peace.